All right. Hello, everyone. Our session tonight is on chatbots, and I'm Yelena, as you already know. All right. So here is the agenda. Today we'll discuss what a chatbot is. We're going to talk about key chatbot terminology, and then we're going to apply the terminology to build Mr. BMI chatbot application. So you're going to have an additional example on top of example in a walkthrough, right? This is a Mr. BMI calculator chatbot application. We're going to talk about some tips and tricks, best practices for the assignment form, and some of the requirements and your questions and answers, okay? Now, here, I sound like a broken record, but I have to remind you. Well, first of all, your dialog must be ready 2 to 3 days before the assignment is due to collect and analyze, because we'll have to do an experiment. You'll need to collect and analyze the conversation data, right? So what happened is you need to have somebody, your friend, it could be me, or anybody in your family, they will need to test your chatbot. Then you look at the conversation data. Then you're going to repeat the experiment on the next day and look at conversation data. So the experiment part of the assignment takes 2 days. You have to have your chatbot ready by then. And this is not the chatbot in a walkthrough. That's different. It has to be on a topic of your choice. All right? Now, we want to make sure that your IBM Cloud account is active. Do not deactivate your account. Again, do not enter your credit card number. Please do not do that. Unless you're told, do not submit IBM tickets. You need to submit the Salesforce tickets. All right? So you need to obtain at least 70% on chatbot key concepts quiz, and the quiz and the course content. It's auto-graded. Number of attempts is unlimited, and the grade in the grade book is the grade highest attempt. Okay. Now, yes, you can ask your classmates, no problem. There is no problem with asking your classmates, because see, you can use anybody for tester, right? Just to test, not to write your paper, but to test. That's fine. Now, another thing is that the walkthrough that we need to do is sequential. You need to do ungraded exercise before you move on to the next page. Sometimes an ungraded exercise is to create a node. Then what you see on the next page is going to use that node. So the chatbot you develop for assignment 4, it must be in your area of interest. That means you cannot submit Mr. Code, you cannot submit Mr. BMI examples, right? So you want to pay attention to assignment deliverables. You need to submit 2 files, the JSON file and the paper right up, right? Remember that deletion cannot be done. Once you delete the JSON file from the system, right, you will lose all your work. If you have to delete that, or if you have to delete the service, you want to download the JSON file first, and then you re-import, right? And again, this is a quote of the day. The only mistake you can make is not asking for help. All right? So now, this is a terminology that you must know, because otherwise we're going to be speaking a foreign language to each other. For example, you need to know what intent is. You need to know what intent example, right? If I tell you to create an intent, you're going to know what I'm talking about. You're going to need to know what an entity is, right? What is entity value? What is a synonym? You need to know what's a dialogue skill, right? You need to know what different types of dialogue nodes and their properties. You need to understand the purpose of the welcome node and anything else node. Each chatbot must end with anything else node, right? Different responses types. What is jump to? You need to understand the concept of the slot to collect information from the user and to store it in a context variable. You need to understand what conditional responses is, right? What's tried out window, what is assistant, and some conversation analysis. This list is not exclusive, there are more, right? But this is basics. So now What is a chatbot? What is a bot? In general, a bot is a system, right, that is able, you use it to solve the specific problem automatically based on some programmed rules. On the other hand, chatbot, it understands the natural language, but it's limited to specific topic. Unlike ChatGPT, right? It's also trained to solve a specific problem, like what problem about your BMI, problem on the cold symptoms, etc. It interacts with the user, and you ask the questions in natural language, right? So that's the whole idea behind this. All right. So this is a high level. What you're gonna do is you're gonna define the application purpose, right? It's something on your choice. So let's give you some example. In the past, some students did something like pizza order. You could specify what type of crust you want. You can specify what the size. You can specify the toppings, right? Something like that. And it could return the cost. It could be ice cream order. You specify if you want a cup or if you want the cone. You specify the flavor and the toppings. It could be something like scheduling the doctor's appointment. You specify which day you want, location that you want. Makes sense, right? It's an example. Or it could be airline reservation, where you specify your travel preferences, etc., and you get a travel ticket. It could be something like university advising system, where you specify if you want graduate or undergraduate, and it gives you program requirements, something like that. You're gonna use you're gonna define the conversation scenarios and build the conversation flow diagram. And I'll show you example. You're gonna use Watson Assistant service on IBM Cloud to implement the chatbot. So the service provides the dialogue management, natural language capabilities. You're gonna train the application through testing the scenarios. You're gonna, well, not actually deploy, but you're gonna create an assistant inside the Watson Assistant application. Then you're gonna run the experiment where you're gonna look at the conversation log, right? You're gonna identify some limitations and suggest enhancement, all right? In including potential integration with other services that you have on IBM Cloud. Here, you're not gonna actually integrate, but you're going to discuss it, the theoretical part, all right? So now, what is a BMI chatbot mission? Well, the whole idea, the user can use that application to estimate BMI. The user is prompted to enter the height in inches and the weight in pounds, and the chatbot is going to return the BMI, including the BMI interpretation, right? If you are obese or if you are underweight, things like that. So instead of spending several hours doing a web search, instead of using a calculator to calculate it manually, you have this app for you. Then it also tells you information about your blood pressure when you enter it. The application is available 24/7. You don't need health insurance to use it. And what you enter remains confidential and also consistent. So if I enter that my blood pressure is 120/80, it's going to give me that I live a healthy lifestyle, something like that. If one of you enters the same numbers, 120/80, you're going to get the same interpretation, maybe worded a little bit different, but you're not going to get that it's a high blood pressure, right? So it's a consistent. However, there are some limitations. First of all, it's going to support only inches and pounds. To answer new question, the application will require training, right? It's trained to cover specific topics. So this is what happens. So when the conversation starts, you're gonna get a welcome message. So here, what I did here, let's say we have 3 doctors on duty. Based on a different time, based on a different time, you're gonna see slightly different introduction based on the time of the day. And you're gonna see different image, right? The doctor on duty. So here is a chatbot, chatbot preview, right? When I ran it earlier today, this is a picture. So she says, greeting, I'm Miss Stethoscope. So this is a picture, how may I help you? If I'm gonna rerun this chatbot now, I'm gonna get different because it's past that time, right? So see, this is Mr. BMI calculator. The picture that's being displayed and the text about it depends on the time of the day. So here I can select my option, what I'm gonna do, right? I'll show you first and then we're gonna go through details. Like for example, I want to estimate BMI. So now it's gonna ask me what is my height in inches, right? And like I'm gonna say, maybe it's 60 inches, something like that. I'm just gonna make it up. Now it's gonna be asking for my weight in pounds, right? I put 120 pounds, and based on that, it's gonna give me the interpretation. This is a BMI, and I have a healthy weight, see? So basically what it did was it stored my responses. But please note that this is what system entity. The bot is configured to read the number from user's input. If I type the word 60, it will also be recognized. If I type the sentence with the word 60, it's going to be recognized also. It's looking for a number in user's input, right? And now I'm going to refresh. I'm going to show something else. On the other hand, I could select another option. And an option is what is BMI? The chatbot, unfortunately, it's hard-coded, but the chatbot is going to give you this text and this image. Then it's going to give you an option to select different options from the menu. For example, here, my blood pressure, right? So right now, I need to enter the systolic blood pressure, that's the highest reading, and I'm going to put 140. Then here, it's asking me for diastolic blood pressure. Just for fun, let's put 100. 100, right? Let's see what happens. Is it gonna identify the number in my input? Yes, it did, right? So it read my number, 100. Now it's saying that I have a high blood pressure and I need to make some lifestyle changes. The doctor will prescribe the medicine. What am I gonna do next? Well, let's see, let's do email me the information. Here it's asking to enter my email. It's not going to check if my email is actually whatever I enter is an active email, but it will check if it follows the correct format. So I can put something like that, right? So this is correct, and I'm going to do like this. There we go. Thank you. The information will be emailed. That's it, right? Now you're going to select another option, or perhaps exit. That's it, right? So exit terminates an application, but here, what it's doing, the message also shows the day of the week. You see, it extracts the day of the week from the date, right? All right, this is good. Now let's go back to the slides. And I spell the things out for you. However, you need to study the vocabulary. Otherwise, we speak different languages here. So this is a welcome, right? Part. And I'm gonna show you the implementation too. But let's look at the conversation scenario. We'll just look. This is the first scenario when the user select the estimate BMI, right? A number is entered. You have to enter the valid number. If you enter something invalid, it's gonna reprompt you, and it's gonna calculate. All right. This is a blood pressure. The user selects the blood pressure. The application prompts to enter the blood pressure. All right, the application returned if the blood pressure is low or high, depending. But if the blood pressure is higher than 180, the application will terminate and put the goodbye message. And also message you need to see the doctor. Okay? So this is a conversation. This is just an explain if I want to explain what BMI is. So this is another scenario. And another scenario is email me the information. This is the exit scenario. I just described it. Then I use the flow diagram to build. So what I used Visio. You have access to Visio. It's one of the application on your student email. Okay. So how will you start? To start, you're going to create new skill, right? It's similar to what you did for your tutorial. So I'm here. I'm going to do this. This is a skill. So now we're going to create skill. So this is called a skill, right? What you create is stored in the JSON file. So you need to remember, this is what you're going to submit. You're going to click here. You're going to do download. This will download JSON file, what you need to submit. So this is the dialog, right? Dialog skill that you will be creating, right? So now we're going to look inside of the dialog. You're going to be creating intent. Intent is something that you want to do, right? For example, suppose that you are in a car. So you want to turn something on. It's an intent. Entity qualifies the intent. For example, you want to turn on the radio, you want to turn on the air conditioning, you want to turn on the light, right? So those will be the entities. To turn something on is an intent, all right? So now here, those are the intents. In this case, you want to email, you want to explain, you want to goodbye, you want to blood pressure and the BMI. This is my entities. So what's the difference? My entities are entities that you define. System entities is SYS, right? It starts with SYS. Those are the pre-built entities. For example, date, system date and system number. That's what I'm using here in system time. I use system number to read the number from the input to do the blood pressure. All right. And I'm using the time to extract the time and to show different picture depending on time of the day. I'm using the date to extract the current day of the week, right? There are different types of my entities. There is a pattern and there is, this is, you see, you have, this is not a pattern entity, this is regular. So you specify values. See, for each value, you specify the synonym. What's a synonym? It's another way to say the same thing. Email, this is a pattern entity. So if you look at it, this is a pattern. It needs to match the value that is entered must match this regular expression. You may have more than one pattern. For example, if you have a phone number, it could be match international and a current phone number. All right. Next thing. Let's look at the slides. I want to make sure I go with the slides. So this is an entity, right? Different entities. And you can upload the entities from the file or you can create manually. The reason you ask to upload in a file, because your tutorial would have been more than 100 pages, right? All right, so here is a summary between differences between your entities and system entities. System is pre-built and my entities is your entities. That's a naming convention that reserved SYS, see system time. This is adding user entities manually. That's the dialog. What's a dialog? The dialog is a sequence of nodes. So when a chatbot is launched, it's going to execute the welcome node. right? So this is a welcome node. Every chatbot starts from the welcome node. And the welcome node in this case has conditional responses. This is checking what time is it now. And here it configures what the chatbot stays. However, I don't want my chatbot to repeat itself. So I put here, what is this? This is at variations, right? Okay. So that's the main menu. Email me. But see here, this is a child node. The control goes to the main menu. And let's look at what is this? First of all, it's setting the variable day. This is just the syntax. How to extract the current date from the date. This is used, this is a counter, is used when the user is prompted for a valid email. If the invalid email is entered after 3 attempts, this will stop. It will terminate. Here, what is this? This is a label, and this is a value. The value of the label is what intent gets called when this option is selected. So if I select the option estimate BMI, this is equivalent to calling intent called BMI, right? So here, what is BMI? I'm calling the intent to explain BMI, and so on, right? So each option has a label and a value. Value is an intent that's being called when that option is selected. Then we're waiting for response from the user. And based on the response, the corresponding intent will be called. And based on which intent is called, the node will be activated accordingly, right? So take a look at it. Welcome is just when the chatbot is launched. Email me is an intent to send an email. Estimate BMI. So what is this? This is a slot. We use slots to read the input from user and to store input in a variable. So it's going to try to read the number. It's checking for a number. If its number is found in the input, it's going to report the height. If not present, it's going to keep on asking to enter the height. This is reading the weight. And here, this is a conditional responses. It's calculating the BMI and doing the response accordingly. All right. Here, what I did, I specified if the blood pressure is dangerously low or blood pressure is dangerously high, we exit the conversation and the user is advised to seek medical attention. Now, the chatbot ends with anything else node. This is when none of the nodes, the input does not activate, does not trigger none of the nodes. You may have noticed that there's also anything else in here. What that means is that it means in this case, it does not recognize any of these options in the input. And this is, you're waiting for reply. All right? This is you're waiting for reply. Then, next thing is that, so see here you're waiting for reply, and what's gonna be next? See, it depends on which option is selected, right? Next thing, this is estimate BMI, right? Then after that, it's calling the menu. What do you want to do next? And you have a goodbye node that gets called if goodbye intent is identified. This is anything else. So this is when that's called when nothing else, none of the nodes above get triggered. And this has to be the last node in the chatbot. This is information on topic, and I created the folder and I group nodes. I can group, I can collapse. See the nodes with similar functionality, if you will, in a folder. I can do that. You don't have to, but I'm just showing you what can be done, right? If I do this here, try it. Let's see what happens. So here, this is showing a picture and I want to select an option and I'm selecting, let's say my blood pressure. I selected this option. This shows here, it identified the intent blood pressure. Now, I'm gonna enter the number, right? I need to enter the high number first and I'm gonna put 100 and click enter. What happens? This is how you debug. You're gonna click on manage context and you're gonna check what variables got stored. See this? The day, and this is important because it's reading the values that I entered correctly. It's reading it into systolic. There is no diastolic at the moment because I have not read it yet. So let's look at this now. It's asking for diastolic. And what's the diastolic blood pressure? It's gonna be, let's just say 60. Okay, so now I'm gonna hit enter. It read two numbers. All right, this is normal. So keep up the healthy lifestyle. But when I look at manage context, you want to look that it read correctly, right? So that's what you're gonna do. Always you're gonna check yourself. Here's the diastolic, it read correctly. All right. This is good, right? Now, this is good. How may I help you? This is good. Manage context, right? So you're gonna troubleshoot, you're gonna look at this here, and this guy here. All right, so now let's go back to the slides. Well, this is just shows you different response type. You also have to add the video. So then part is what assistant has to do after that. Wait for an input or jump to another dialog node or skip the input. You specify what to do next, right? This is a customization for the welcome node, right? Here is just stop for the blood pressure. I just showed you different response types. And this is the option response type we just looked at, right? So here is just the way to read the numbers, and I'm gonna give you this chatbot as an example, and you're gonna get a copy of the slides, all right? This is to extract an email, but this is a little bit tricky. And I could not get it to work on the first attempt, and I did. It may take a little bit of time to get this to work because what is this? This is a pattern entity. Email me. See that? This is an email. See? So, but what you're doing is you're trying to read the email pattern. This is a slot, and you're trying to read this email from user input. This is just the purpose of this is to count how many attempts user entered in valid email. After 3 attempts, it's just gonna cut it off, right? So if I look at this, see, it's gonna add 1. So this is what? This is a setting the context and you're reading the email. You have to read like this, email dot literal, just the syntax. On the first attempt is gonna be, so this is just, okay, if you exhausted 3 attempts, this is what it's gonna do. It's gonna set an email to the dummy value X, it's gonna reset attempt to 0. Oops, yeah, I discard the changes. No, see that? It's gonna, this is when you, see it, in here, the here is checking if the email is X, the dummy value X, and if it's the case, it's just gonna say you did not provide valid email, something like this. All right. So hopefully it makes sense. You need to look at the implementation. You're gonna have a copy. Oh, this is how you read the day of the week. If it's 5 is, it means that you're reading the full day. This is a Saturday, Sunday. So what is this? This is a folder. You create folder to group similar nodes, nodes with similar functionalities rather. Here is just showing you how it's identifying entities and system entities in the system. See like sys number. This is the system entity in the thread 16. It's testing, etc. And you build virtual. All right, building virtual assistant. What you'll need to do is, I'm going to create another one just to show you. You're going to go to this assistance tab and you're going to say create assistant. Here you can type the assistant name. I can just say Mr. BMI, something like that, right? And I'm going to create an assistant, but what I have to do is I need to add the dialog skill, and this is a dialog skill. All right, this is a dialog skill. Now what we need to do, I added the dialog skill. So now we need to look at the preview link. How do I get my preview links that I'll need to send my friends? You're gonna click here, and this link here is a link that you're gonna share with people for testing your chatbot. All right, this is a link that you're gonna share with people, whoever you decide to use for your testers. Now let's go back. We need to go back, so close this out. All right, I'm gonna go back to my skills, and this is what's gonna happen. I'm gonna go back here. All right, so here is, I'm going, see this is here, it should say the analytics, right? The analytics. These are the analysis of the conversation. So here it shows I had 3 conversations with my chatbot, average number of messages per conversations. Well, you're gonna have more because you're gonna be tracking for 2 days, right? Now, if you scroll down here, it shows the trend. And then here, average messages per conversation, etc. Here, I can use the details, but before I do it, this is why do we care about the number of time each intent was used? Because we know which functionality of the chatbot is used the most, all right? Now, if I click on intent itself here, it's going to show me the conversations where the intent appears. In this case, there are no weak understanding, but once in a while, the chatbot may not recognize your response. So you would have to retrain it, right? Here are just the user conversations, and perhaps you can look and analyze one of them, right? So usually when I test your conversations, I try to enter something that it does not recognize. Like for example, if you ask something like what language you speak, I try to break it. I try to enter the language that is not part of the implementation. Then you would log in and you're gonna see the weak understanding. You're gonna see the chatbot did not quite understand what I said, and you're gonna train it. You're gonna add that as one of the values. All right? Cool. This is the overview, etc. Hooks, my entities, system entities. All right. Intents, right? Etc. Overview, right? That is it. All right. So basically, what you'll need to do is, well, there are more slides. I'll go over, but I'm telling you what you need to do, right? So here is a system number where in the conversation you are using the system numbers and you look at the conversations themselves, right? Let's look at the slides. So you're gonna create an assistant, you're gonna send the link, right? You add in the dialog skill, it just spells out what I just showed you. You're gonna send the assistant preview link to your friends. You're gonna run the experiment. So you're gonna share the link with 2 to 5 friends, the more is the better. You're gonna run several conversations per day. At the end of the first day, you need to take the screenshots of the log, take notes of any adjustment. Then you're gonna repeat the experiment on the second day. But before you do that, you need to, when you make adjustments, you need to note what adjustments you made. Then you're going to ask them to repeat, to run the chatbot again. And after that, you're going to share your findings, and then you're going to let's assume that you were going to run the experiment on a day 3. What changes you would have made for day 3? That you're going to do. You're going to share your findings in a paper. Remember, there is a paper that goes with this, right? So that's just a conversation log. It shows the overview, and you can click on details. Like for example, here, there are 2 weak understandings. So I can go back to my weak understandings, and I can specify the correct entities that should be triggered. Make sense? I hope it does. Right? So there are some useful documentations. All right. I hope it makes sense to you. So let me see. Let me see the chat. I'm trying to open the chat. Talk a little bit more about handlers. Oh, yes, thank you. So what handlers do is handlers allow switching topics in the conversation. So let's look at the example here. If I look at the dialogue, here is a dialogue, right? So what's going to happen here? I'm going to look, see that I'm doing in the estimate BMI. I'm asking user to enter the height, etc. But what if I don't want to reveal my weight, perhaps? I want to exit the conversation. So here I have a handler. If it identifies the goodbye intent, right? So suddenly I want to quit. It's gonna say, sound like you want to quit, and it's gonna quit. It's gonna stop asking these questions, and it's gonna quit, right? So then, if I ask to explain, it's gonna just put some conversation. It's gonna just put an explanation of what I'm asking for, right? So let's go ahead and actually run this piece here. I'm gonna refresh. Okay. Well, so here, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select this estimate BMI. It's asking me for my height in inches, and I don't feel like answering a question. So I'm gonna type something like exit. Look what it's gonna do. It picked up. It says, sounds like you want to quit. Sorry, I did not receive sufficient information. See, that's what the handler is. It allows to change the topics in the conversation. Instead of keep on asking me to enter my reading, it's just gonna go to the different flow of the dialogue. Does it make sense? I need to be able to quit the conversation at any time. Excellent. And I can have more than one handler, right? So if I'm going to select what, oh, this is what is BMI, it's an explain. Then I can select another option. Perhaps I can say estimate BMI again. And sorry, I did not receive sufficient information. You would have to refresh. You would have to refresh to have this option available again. Because it did not receive sufficient information, you decided to quit. Select an option, and you're gonna do perhaps estimate BMI, right? I selected it again, but now I can say explain, and it's gonna give me clarification here. See, this is giving me clarification, and it's asking me to re-enter my height in inches. So that's a handler. I'm supposed to be able to exit the conversation at any time. In the email example, if I enter 3 times, yeah, incorrect, then yeah. Guys, do you have questions? I want you to ask questions now. So what you have is you have a quiz. Then you have to develop the chatbot on a topic of your choice. Please do not submit Mr. VMI because that's going to be 0. All right, do not submit for grade Mr. Cold because it's also going to be 0. Because you need to create the chatbot on the topic of your choice. It could be something like sale, it could be IT support. Anything else? Guys, please, I want to see your questions now. Well, I know that once you start working on it, you're gonna have more questions, I'm sure. All right. All right, another question. Once we have uploaded, all right, for the tutorial, you need to upload because you're creating for the tutorial. You don't need to train. You just follow whatever is in the tutorial. You will have to train your chatbot, but you are uploading from CSV file because what happens is if you're uploading from the CSV file, see, if I did not give you the option to upload from CSV file, you would have to key that in. Then the tutorial would be 100 pages, if no more, if not more than that. So this is like a shortcut. So let's go ahead and import, right? But I had to do a little bit of planning before that. You don't need to create an assistant for the tutorial. You just do whatever it says in a document. But you do have to create an assistant for the chatbot that you will create. And you need to train the chatbot that you will create on a topic of your choice. And your write-up is going to be about that chatbot. You need to explain what you did when you developed. Cool? All right. I need to see more questions. Could you show? Oh, in Visio, well, I don't have this diagram in Visio at the moment, but this is what's going to happen. I have student email, and the student email has access to applications, right? If I click over here, I can see the applications that I have access to, and this is the Visio, see? You have access to Visio, and you can save in your cloud. It will be saved on your account, see? See here, you're gonna do create new, and you're gonna create new diagram. When you save it, it's gonna be saving to what is called my drive. You have space, right? And this gets backed up, so you do not need to worry about that. In fact, you could back up all your student work to OneDrive. You have cloud storage access. See that you're gonna do. So you have access to Visio. You don't need to install it. It's part of one of the apps in a student email. All right? Does it help? Let me know if it helps. All right? I just took the screenshot and I edited in slides. Right? So a few semesters ago, we were able to actually integrate it with Discovery service. So what it did was I could search, or I could build a repository of documents on a certain topic. In this case, it's a blood pressure. Then I could integrate my Watson Assistant with that service and use to search the repository. Right? So make sure you write very good paper. You want to write a good paper, so you have to start this assignment early. This service does not use capacity hours. All right, so that's a good news because you don't need to worry about your capacity hours, right? Any other questions for me? please go ahead and ask. Please do not hesitate to ask. And again, there is more than one way to implement something. Maybe your implementation would be different, but I'll give you this JSON file, and this is what you need to do. I forgot to show you what you need to do. So these are the skills. What you're gonna do? You're gonna do create skill. You're gonna select the dialog skill. You're gonna click next. Instead of creating brand new skill, you're gonna say upload skill and upload the file. Cool? You're gonna upload the files that I'll give you and practice. All right? Anything else? Anyone? Let me see the chat. Huh? Can you elaborate on the question? You tried the Talbot tutorial and it keeps saying me I don't understand. Well, it's because it does not recognize the entities. It's going to the anything else node. You cannot skip any of the states, any of the pages, any of the exercises. The assignment, this tutorial is sequential. So you cannot skip. If you skip something, you will have to do it over, all right? Because it does not identify the entities in your input, and it's gonna go to anything else node. See, there is a last node, anything else. I have to go to the, oh, what is it doing now? I would have to go to the dialog, right? And I would have to go to the dialog, and if you look at anything else node, it's gonna show, see this, it's Watson Assistant, but it's also called Watson X Assistant. Please note that. So here is a skill. Oh, this is a skill. I'm gonna open the skill. I go to this dialog. What is it doing here? See? Anything else? If any of these nodes does not get triggered, it's gonna go here by default. All right? How? Okay. The question is, when you start working on a tutorial, how do you go back? All right. So what you will do is you're gonna go. This is the IBM Cloud, right? This is IBM Cloud. What you will need to do is you're gonna go to resources, right? Resources. And this is a chatbot, right? This is a Watson Assistant. Sorry, this is an instance, right? Please don't pay attention that I have multiple instances. I was doing a lot of testing at different times. So you're gonna click on this to launch, right? So this is a service, and you're gonna click this. All right. Oh, I launched different version. I launched the trial. Oh wait, I may have launched the wrong. See, you're gonna launch this. Right? You're gonna launch the service. Oh, I launched the wrong instance. Sorry, guys. This is the right. That was not the right instance, but you need to launch the correct instance. So that's why I'll tell you, please do not add a bunch of services. So here is this is the right instance, and this was the right one. That was the right. So you launch your service, but just by clicking on it, it's gonna take you to the what? This is it's gonna oops. See, because I have multiple instances, it's confused. Please do not do this. This is what not to do. What not to do, right? So you have to launch the correct service, correct instance. Then you're gonna see these options, skills, etc. Assistant. You will see it when you launch. right? I will have to launch the right instance from the IBM cloud, right? So does it make sense? We go to resources and launch the service. Then the skills that you created will be there and you just keep on adding to it. Did I answer your question? So you stop, then you go to resources and you're going to just click on it and launch the service. And you continue. It's impossible to do this assignment in one sitting. So please, all right. But yes, if it doesn't understand the input, okay, let me do this example. So I click on try it out and I'm gonna put something like table, right? It does not understand my input because my application is not trained on table. See, it's gonna ask to rephrasing. Because I did not trigger any of the nodes, it's gonna go to anything else node. Huh? See that? So you have to look at how your other nodes are configured. Okay? Did I answer the question? So you need to make sure that you do not skip anything. If you skip something, then next page is using it and you are not ready to do the next page. So this is a sequential tutorial. Very important, all right? Because you do something as an exercise, then you need to use it for the next step. Okay? Anything else? Huh? Anything else? Any questions? No? If there are no questions, we're gonna call it a night. You're gonna have the recording, this file, JSON file, and you're gonna have the slides. Okay? All right. Thank you guys for attending the session. All right? I'm gonna. Oh, what is it? Yes. Okay? The instance it's light. That's correct. You could select light. The reason that one was selected as trial is because at that time when I created that, we used another service. Well, you can, now it does not matter, actually. You can select trial or you can select light. Because the reason you were asked to select trial is because at some point we used integration with Watson Discovery Service. So it does not matter. All right, does not matter. But trial is going to expire in 30 days. So what we are doing now, we are not using integration with Watson Discovery. So that will work. Okay. Anything else? Any other questions? Thank you, everyone. And you're going to get the recording. You may need to watch some portions more than once. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording and stop sharing. All right? Oops. All right, stop sharing. What is this? Oops. Stop recording.